I wouldn't make a direct connection between this current investigation of the EU Commission and the visit of Chancellor Scholz in China. So this is an ongoing process, and we have to wait and see how this investigation will end. And of course, China has, in general, some advantages in producing electric cars with regard to access to raw materials, with economies of scale, battery production, energy costs, and so on. So this investigation is something difficult. And we already heard recently that also German OEMs, car makers, said that they are a bit that they are not at least in favor of tariffs or other measures to regulate imports from China.
But clearly, the European brands are under a lot of pressure. You have subsidies stateside, you have subsidies in China. They are making pressure on European politicians to be more aggressive here and try to protect the companies based in Europe. What is the outlook? I'll pose you the question from the other side. What is the outlook for European EV makers given all of these tensions?
It is clear that the competition to Chinese car makers in the electric mobility sector will increase. China is now going into the electric car production and is increasing their exports to markets such as Europe. That's what we are currently seeing. The numbers of Chinese brands on European streets is still low, but it will increase. And this holds true especially for the volume car segment, where, as I said before, China has advantages in terms of costs. They have a better access to raw materials. They have very low cost battery production. They have economies of scale. This is an advantage that they will not lose in the next few years. And this is indeed a challenge for the European car makers. Still, free trade is something that would benefit the progress of new technologies such as e-mobility. It is indeed a very complicated situation. If you argue that China is acting with non-WTO conformed policy or instruments, then it's of course clear that the European Commission has to do something against it. It's still the ongoing investigation, but at the end of the day, consumers in Europe would benefit from imports from China because prices have to come down if we want to have a higher increase and higher market share of electric cars in Europe. So a tricky situation, but the competition, especially in the volume car segment, will intensify.
Eric, you mentioned how complicated this is. I think it's complicated on both sides, only for consumers and for the European automakers themselves. Talk to me about what you see as at stake with Scholz's visit. European automakers are also dependent on the Chinese market to sell their vehicles as well. And at the same time, China has gone from a supplier to a competitor. How do they balance this? Do tariffs threaten their ability to sell in the Chinese market in your mind?
This is obviously a fear. So you just said that there's, of course, some pressure from the European car industry on the European Commission. But on the other hand, I heard last week some statements from the German car industry that they are a bit afraid of tariff and other measures because retaliation is always an issue in the car sector. And as you said, China is a very important market for not only German, but also other European brands. They produce there. They will also use Chinese factories as a new export hub for ASEAN markets, for South Asia, and so on. So it is indeed a risk on both sides, and this is difficult to balance out.